So the participants asked me what will be this panel discussion about. I said I don't know. So basically we are going to read your questions. At the moment it's empty, but I have a couple of questions for this situation. I will use one of those right now. So one of the questions, so basically the rules are, it's one person speaking at a time. There are microphones. You could grab them and speak. If someone wants to oppose or give a different opinion, feel free to do it, and we'll accept answers from the audience. So the first questions. The first question was, what do you think in relation of PSD2 and GDPR rules? Because obviously one of the first use cases of PSD2 is to get more scoring information and possibly all your transaction history and this kind of stuff. What do you think will change or not change with this regards, or any opinions about it?
I think that a regulator should start this discussion.
Okay, not really a regulator, but quite a tough topic. I still would start with a problem, and today, well, I got a recognition that there is definitely a problem. PSD2 is there, and it aimed to improve the life for third-party providers. But we now see that we are speaking about standard APIs, premium APIs, and they're still struggling to complete integration when almost every bank has its own API, even if there is Berlin Group standard behind. And I would still expect, I'm not a big expert in GDPR, but you should respect GDPR for sure. As regards to API and open banking, I would expect that from policy perspective, we have still things to do and to deliver to improve, first of all, kind of, I don't know, standardization of existing APIs, because as it was mentioned today, and it was a very good point that even if it's based on Berlin Group is not a standard, it's a kind of framework allowing you to still to build your own standard. And so kind of better standardization. And the second one, yeah, the problem exists. When TPPs used screen scraping, they could have quite a, let's call it, enriched data. Now the data flow is very limited. You have exact, I don't know, positions, what you can take, and this indeed don't make your life better. And well, finally banks have found the way how they can earn money using APIs and open banking, but if the aim of PSD2 was to facilitate evolvement of innovation payment services, I would say this is the wrong way forward. We need to think about how to promote true open banking.
Any other opinions?
We have a joke in our market that a working group in Brussels, then they were writing GDPR and PSD2. They were sitting in the different buildings and never have dinner with each other because all these documents are not very friendly between. And we are, as a TPP, are waiting from some explanation from both regulatory of personal data and central bank, how we should be compliant in both this area. So we are waiting for explanation from someone above us.
You want to add an extra question or to elaborate on this one?
Yeah, just elaborate first. Yeah.
Okay, so I see that we are kind of, a bit of afraid of talking. I'll elaborate a bit of more about the PSD2 as such and on the GDPR stuff. So first of all, we have to understand that when the PSD2 was created, it was created to make the user experience better or to make the competition bigger between the financial institutions or to enable others to do the financial services. But the business is smart and we now all see that it will elaborate actually not with the transactional things, with the payments and account information services or how we call that, but actually with the data selling things, for the lead generation stuff, for analyzing the data, analyzing the user behavior, analyzing the financial data, and then selling that user behavior things. And this is the topic that actually we should focus on from the GDPR perspective as well, because in my opinion that will really be a big issue there, not just on the kind of standard things that we are now thinking about GDPR and PSD2 stuff. And that's what we should actually escalate because the business models that are built at this moment, that what we see in the market is the free transactions. We will reach that somebody will pay for your transactions just to get the data. So that means that we will reach the level of Facebook and this kind of stuff, and that's where we have to focus on. So if talking about the GDPR, I wouldn't agree that it's so unfriendly from the actually goals that we would like to achieve from the user data protection side, especially with the PSD2 related things. So of course the standards, all the stuff is really good, and of course myself, I did scraping before a lot, and we had all the data, that we wanted about the customer, about the user. But if looking from the data protection side, to have the same possibilities on the PSD2 is just insane. So we have to actually focus on what we want to solve and what we want to achieve.
I would not say I'm the I'm the PSD2 payment expert, but GDPR is one of my topics. I'm doing like another thing apart from cash registers, and I don't understand why it's a problem. Because GDPR only like protects personal data, and the data gets personal only when you attach a name, a family name, a digital ID. So those two. So if there is a virtual person, like a bank, or I don't know, my Minecraft ID, where is numbers, ET, it isn't a GDPR subject. And if it's quite similar how Bitcoin works, I think. You have your hashed sort of wallet and transactions are flowing. That the data is super duper perfect for analytics and to understand whether it's a cool guy or not, but it isn't personal in any means. And only when some bank or somebody adds a name that this hash is Edijs, then it gets personal. Once you keep it separated, it's cool. Use it. Sell it.
I will add to this. So nobody needs anonymized data. So the business wants to know if Alexei today is going to drink a beer and then could offer Alexei what kind of bar he would like to visit, or if he needs a loan or something. So nobody needs the anonymized data.
This is another thing. If you add data, not Aleksejus and not Loskutovas is important to understand who is who. It's important to know that Edijs, skip the name, person, man, 30 years, living around Riga or in a specific place, using LMT, having children, working in IT, is buying a lot of beer. That is important, not Edijs Tanons. Well, if you want to shoot in the eye, of course, you need to have a name. But you have clusters of people who are married men with 2 children living in Riga. If they come in a bar, you sell them beer. That's it.
Yeah, so what I see is that, yes, PSD2 data is anonymized, but fintechs would put it as a step 2 or steps 4 in their onboarding process. And since PSD2 is mandatory, then everyone could submit their PSD2 consent to get some financial services out of company. So that's where it comes into play. Like previously, you would be importing PDFs of statements, some made in Photoshop or in yes, but now, yeah, it's a bit different. That's just my comment. Okay, so there are questions. Question firstly to Aleksejus, but everyone can comment. So imagine you would add mandatory requirements for PSD3. What requirements would you add to fulfill maybe use cases which are not possible today, but almost possible? Do you see something like this?
Actually, we are thinking a lot about our requirements for possible future PSD3. Actually, it's a question of time only because everyone is talking about that. And I think that it should be not only about banks. It should be much more data including this in this new document. I mean, something from health, something from insurance, something from even utility bills, etc., etc., etc. And we should, how to say, rename this open banking opportunity to open something, which allows us to receive this data not only from financial institution. That's my wish would be.
But from which institution?
I don't know, some utility company about some anonymous person spends on electricity and other stuff. Some information about his health situation, information about I don't know, insurance or pension fund. It's a lot of information which is not reachable at the moment with PSD2.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, this is a good example. If I'm correct, Australia is on that way towards open society, open data for almost everything, and utilities. It was right that the next thing to open. But to make it clear as regards to PSD3, so at least I don't have any evidence that work is ongoing. And I would say that this is really right approach because, well, it's 2020 now. We worked on PSD2 5 years ago. It was presidency of Latvia of the European Council. I was there. It was 5 years ago. We still have not finished implementation of PSD2 because in e-commerce we still now have a transitional period to migrate to 3D secure second version, second generation. But I would say 2 or even 3 years before there was pre-work started. So almost 8 years to get there we are now. And you can imagine if you start now discussion on PSD3, we should count 5 to 8 years again when we arrive to PSD3. And well, that time, if I remember correctly, the work started with big market players. They were already for 8 years ago, Trustly, Sofort, Klarna, and Ideal. And the work on PSD2 started with their lobby of members of European Parliament. They wanted to get better rules and level playing field. This has triggered the work on PSD2, if you didn't know. And again, Aleksejus could express his concerns, and maybe this will trigger some discussions. Nevertheless, directive won't be the right approach. We need maybe standards, we need some guidelines, and indeed improved competition, and then things may work.
Any other comments on this?
What would you do if this directive could become regulation when you directly apply to all the states equally? Because currently I see that Swedbank has their own API, Luminor has their own API, HSBC probably has their own sort of API.
Actually, a lot of different API, it would be a big opportunity, because to switch the same API with all banks, it's a easy thing. But if you are a strong market player, you can launch all these APIs if they are different. So it's not a problem. It's just opportunity to those who already are in this business.
Yes, so to touch on something which was mentioned briefly a while ago about free transactions. Do I understand correctly that at the moment merchants are either accepting credit cards and they pay 2% or a bit less, or they accept bank link and then it's whatever, €1. But in PSD world, if you connect a local client and a local account in a bank, then you get a free transaction. Do you think that after a couple of years it will stay the same, or there will be some new pricing models invented to tackle this?
Now we can discuss. Yeah. So at the moment, of course, the application of the PSD2 and on the transactional side pricing is really different. So there are really different models what we see in the market now. Either it's per connection to the bank, either it's per transaction, either something different. Yeah, but anyway, to be honest, everything is about the user experience as such, not about the pricing only. So that's why they will still accept the credit cards, they will still accept the other type of methods, and I don't believe that it will just change like this. Yeah. So anyway, it will take time until the players like Aleksejus company or other kind of companies will find the way of what problem they're actually solving and where they're just giving the benefit bigger than the pricing, because the pricing as such is not an issue. It might be an issue for thinking of like we will increase the competition or something that because the pricing is too high for card transactions or something, and of course 2% is not true as well in our region, because we know what is the pricing in our region. Yeah. So and it's way much lower. So the pricing of the transactions under the PISP service or other, it's not the main thing. The main thing is what we can actually solve with this kind of products, and with the consents that we get, for at least 90 days. But Aleksej can tell more about the pricing.
This is very interesting opinion of Liudas. He as he said, he has a lot of experience in screen scraping. We too, but we don't collect any additional data. It was not connected with the payment, and it was our just attitude on this business. But what about pricing? First of all, we should understand that pricing models are very different, and with no names, biggest market players in payment initiation just trying to change bank transaction to payment initiation, providing this service as a competitor's service. Cards are not so convenient for merchants, because you should pay a lot for this transaction. You should keep 10% of deposit in a certain bank. You will get the money not today, but after some days. And if you're providing a payment initiation service at the same pricing, but with no deposit and money will be arrived to your account the same day, it's good cash flow. You can work on the same pricing. But we are from our company is from other planet. Yes, as I told previously in my presentation, our unique selling proposition is to provide the cheapest price in the European Union, and we give to all our customers lowest price guarantee. That means that if after 1 day or 1 year someone from our competitor will go to them and ask and provide better price, they just say that we have better pricing and we will change it immediately. And we have such a game with one of our competitor last year with 2 clients. Guess who wins in these games?
Clients.
Yes. Client received 2 time less payment pricing, and our competitor understood that we can go very low. And if to argue the Liudas opinion that pricing could be 0, yes, it could. And we can provide for some clients such a kind of services for free, but it be some special additional conditions for such service, and we have some ideas in that area, and we will present such service in 2-3 months.
Can I elaborate a bit? So you touched a really good angle actually about the existing schemes, about the card schemes, and about the payment initiation service. Yeah. So the thing is that the existing infrastructure with the card scheme, it actually works for the client, for the end user. Yeah, because it is a deposit that the merchant has to keep with. Then there is a chargeback opportunity. So basically it is created in a such way that it would secure the paying part, even though it's the merchant is like unknown. Yeah, so basically you're like, you can buy easily somewhere, just like a bit of not being afraid of losing the money. Yeah, so especially with it, you know, with some regions. The problem I see a bit, so that now the responsibility of that actually lies on the payment initiation service provider to check the merchant and to know that this merchant is not kind of creating some schemes or fraud schemes or something, because in this service, in the payment initiation service, is the same as in the bank link, that when the transfer is confirmed, you cannot revoke that. You're not eligible for chargeback or something, so the money is gone. Yeah, so and that's where I still see a risk from the user's perspective, because from the user perspective, why they like paying with the cards is just because they feel secure. And if we will get the situation that there will be some problems, you know, with the getting money back or something, or fraud cases with the payment initiation service, so then we might have big problems. Please elaborate.
Well, just to complement from user perspective, you know, when you have to enter all the card details in the e-commerce environment, and then to go one more time with strong customer authentication when you are redirected to your internet banking environment, then go almost the same procedure there. I'm not happy to use payment card in e-commerce, even if any of e-commerce merchants would offer me. And in Latvia, we have a situation when well, e-merchants are pushing for paying invoices, right? So here I would say your, if I may call it, rival Paysera is doing a great job here in Latvia, and almost all biggest e-merchants are served by Paysera, and it's absolutely convenient way. Indeed, I should fully recognize and understand all the risks that I'm not paying e-merchant but Paysera at that particular moment. But this, their role as an intermediary makes my life as and my user experience, customer experience much more better.
Actually, also a user comment. I had a discussion with my friend who is working and living in Dubai, being a consultant for security, and he told me, well, they have a national ID. With that, they can do whatever. And if you show the ID to the seller who sells you a car, they say, okay, cool, just sign here that it was your ID, you are buying this car for 100,000 euros, signed. So it go away. We don't need any contracts, we don't need any cards, nothing. Because if you will not pay us, the government will get you. That's it. No security, no insurance schemes around it, no, nothing. Just, we'll find you. Thank you. So pay with ID card.
Yes. So that's not PSD2, I guess. Yeah. So here's the related question. There are administrative fines up to 20 million euro or up to 4% of total annual turnover, whichever is higher, if there is a breach in PSD2 process pipeline. So who should take the fine, source bank or TTP?
Sounds more like GDPR fines, not PSD2. These are GDPR fines, but the question is interesting. If there are fines and in a breach, well, actually by GDPR, by law, you can claim the 4%, or actually not the 4%. The 4% is just the fine issued by the government. And if the government find whatever number or whatever amount or whatever way that the bank is faulty, you can get to the bank or to the retailer or to whomever you want who was in the chain breaching the law. If, for example, let's name a big name, Accenture or IBM. Let's take IBM. If IBM would build a bank application for a small bank in Latvia who breached the law for GDPR, I would go after IBM because they have bigger pockets and GDPR allows it, and the legal guys would do it the same. If government issued a fine to the bank and stated that, yeah, it was connected with IBM, etc., we will issue a fine of 100 euros, it's immediately assigned to a lawyer that he can go after and claim that my personal data, my personal property was touched with this breach, and please pay me 100 millions because I want so.
But isn't the personal data breach the only one? Like, from what I understand, TTP should have a license in every EU authority.
Yeah, but that does well.
And then
that one isn't actually connected to personal data breach. Well, whoever is breaching, I can get to TTP, to bank, to merchant, to who made it, the system. Whoever is with the biggest pocket, I'm going after them. That's the law.
The author of the question could elaborate more, but I would like to address the second part. I think the PSD2 was written to protect customer, and therefore customer gets reimbursement immediately, and then other parties, TPP and banks, should negotiate and understand who is guilty. But then if you have an experience, I would really be happy to hear your experience. If you had such a situation, do you feel protected as TPP against banks, and do you feel comfortable?
Actually, I very liked this comment of colleague from the left, and I'm guessing that any bank have much more deeper pocket than we have. So if someone will ask us about his personal data, we will connect to you, just finding the deepest pocket. Actually, and yes, and if without jokes, of course, we don't have any cases yet, and only after some real cases will be some court tradition will be formed, and we'll see how such situation will be solved. We are willing not to receive such cases in the near future, but life is life. Life is life, and everything could happen.
Yeah, I can tell from previous experience, basically with the transactional side. Yeah, so basically, when some cases happen with the transactions, doesn't matter how they were initiated, but basically all the time, bank or other financial institution, doesn't matter what kind of either payment institution or e-money institution, just takes this responsibility, reimburses the client, and then tries to find out who was kind of guilty in that chain. But I didn't heard that there would be some disputes or something so loudly that the client was not reimbursed, and then there was like some things in the change that and from the GDPR. So yeah, so I don't know that if we had any kind of cases in the region or in Europe actually, so loudly cases related to the financial services.
I don't know if it's connected to PSD2, but British Airways last year lost. They get fined for something like 500 millions. Yeah, but British Airways had a leak in their website where credit cards, with all the numbers, were leaked to the internet. And they were fined by the authority, and afterwards each of the persons whose ID or whose credit card was fined could go after British Airways or whoever made the website. So that's...
But British Airways is better, yeah?
You don't know if it's a Microsoft, for example, or they hosted in Amazon. That would be cool.
Okay, so here is a quite open-ended generic question. Do you think PSD2 is a golden mine for banks and fintechs? Why? I think mine is where you mine gold, not just step on mine. So.
Should we start about the aim and ideal scenario? Well, as I said already, the idea was to deliver level playing field and improve competition. Well, it may seem that it's a gold mine for banks, as banks were the first to start using new opportunities, especially in Latvia. Nevertheless, if I already, you have seen a very nice presentation by Aleksejus that, business is going and they're doing quite well. Therefore, I can't say, maybe we actually, we wrote PSD2 for a specific scenario, a specific market situation, and now market has changed. Technology is developing quite rapidly, and we have new opportunities, and maybe we do not see them all at the moment, and maybe one day PSD2 will become a golden mine.
Yeah, exactly. So the question was if PSD2 is a gold mine, and I would say I see it from the side, in the same way as we had with the mobile operators having either pay per minute or flat rates. So money will come in some way, but either it will be 60 cents per minute, or they even said that 25 cents per minute in Europe is terribly low. But they are living and they're happy and they're giving service. And we have now 5G and the internet is flat rate. Previously, I did even get bills for internet per minute. So it's just will open new opportunities. And of course it is painful to switch off the cash cow lines, or the cash cows. Transactions are giving a lot of money, but you will find another business. Just will sell data or something else.
The mine is definitely for the developers. So for banking core providers, for the developers. So that's the real mine. For everyone, it's just an opportunity to change the business models or to look for other models.
Thank you, Liudas. You say my mind.
Yes, as a developer in fintech, I really appreciated the number of innovation emails from banks I've received last year, and meetups and so on. So it's really booming, I would say, and a lot of banks are trying to push even further and to show that we have some extra, and that's for developers. I agree, it's really nice. So a question to regulator, I think that is meant by Deniss, who is not exactly a regulator, but so do you feel that EBA involved you in PSD2 creation, and are you confident enough to explain all nuances to market players? So do you have a center of excellence where we could call? I mean, are you confident enough to explain to local, I guess, market players nuances of PSD2?
Well, first of all, we are not regulators here in Latvia. We have separate authority called Financial and Capital Markets Commission, FCMC, and I think. First of all, actually, PSD2 was written by European Council, approved by the Parliament and the European Commission. So this is a legislative power in EU, and EBA was like an authority, just received a delegation to ensure a smooth implementation process, and was responsible for transition of different, as you may know, regulatory technical standards and guidelines here. Therefore, I don't have a direct link with EBA, and nevertheless, I was involved also in several EBA working groups, and we also were drafting regulatory technical standards and guidelines on, risk classification, fraud data, and so on. So. Well, from our perspective, I would say we have started well in advance. As a central bank, we did quite a lot. We organized different task forces here and seminars trying to start early discussion on this issue of API and strong customer authentication. We also invited FCMC, tech providers, banks indeed, and non-banks. We had them just few, but existing e-money and e-money and payment institutions were very much interested to come and to discuss, and they were again struggling to find the opportunities and source of earnings at that particular moment. And then indeed, when it became already, when PSD2 came into force and it became a mandatory requirement, then this was taken over by FCMC, and they are responsible. Therefore, if you lack of support, if you lack of clarity, this is not directly a question to me, but nevertheless, as I said already, you always can refer to me and ask me questions, and I will try to help you. That's the situation. But nevertheless, among 13 banks or PSPs that had to deliver their APIs, 11 have received also this exemption, and they don't need to have a fallback option. This is, I would say, a brilliant example that everything works smoothly. The another question is a practical one. Well, does it work smoothly?
We are only doing first step here in Latvia, so I'm not ready to share opinion on this question. I mean, does it work smoothly or not? But if you let me answer something about regulatory in Lithuania, I can say that they are quite openly, they usually open this discussion about open banking, about APIs. They start collecting working groups on all questions which were related to these questions. Now they are first the first who willing to connect in one place all banks, all TPPs, and start discussion between them. Then when we have some problem with certain banks in Lithuania with API connection, regulatory was the ones who just said us sit on the table together and discuss it. We can be somewhere near you, but you should talk with each other, not with us, not through us. And as a result, we have quite a good situation now in this area, because regulatory is only look around and pushing us to communicate directly with all financial institutions.
Okay, so the next question is, should banks worry about the security of TPP applications, or it's not their responsibility? So whose fault is if TPP is hacked, and who to blame?
Absolutely a legal question, because we are all working in real life, and in that scenario the guilty part would be TTP, of course, because if it was hacked in their side, because sometimes bank could be hacked, but as I remember, in 20 or more years of banking in Baltics, no bank was hacked at all. In Lithuania. Okay. So TPP will be guilty.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're actually running out of questions. If you could make the last effort. Okay, so it's a simple one. Will PSD2 replace screen scraping? So I guess yes. That's the point. Okay, we don't have any more questions actually, and we have still 5 minutes.
Let me ask one. What's the next big thing Latvian bank or European central banks are talking about?
You missed the most interesting presentation of the day, where I was talking about such a thing like central bank digital currency, CBDC, and this also has some relation to our talk now, because when we speak about earnings and revenues, can you imagine if, for example, we have digital money very similar to Bitcoin and having the smallest entity as like Satoshi, and then you don't care about subscription because it's so negligible, but millions of such payments will deliver you enough to make sustainable business, and for me to have something invisible happening and not very much affecting my account statement. So this is a future, I would say, that we move towards this fantastic direction, that we have a lot of subscriptions. We are ready to pay for them because we do not feel them and they do not make us any pain, because it's not 10 euros per month, for example, but it's quite small, even per transaction. But therefore, we still have, and our payments will become more invisible.
And we have a last question to summarize for everyone. Would you mention 3 core benefits from PSD2 which everyone will gain out of that? So what's your top 3 positive things?
It's obvious that main benefit was expected to the merchant. And I think it is there, and I have already mentioned example of Paysera. If our merchant likes the service Paysera provides them, then probably there is something really good they can deliver. From consumer point of view, well, it's also quite nice thing that new services allow me to have better user experience. And indeed, PSD2 triggered new discussions on PSD3. Now how it goes with e-money directive together with settlement finality directive, because this morning we discussed access of fintechs, of non-banks to payment systems, and GDPR as well. So I think it was when it was needed. Now we still have some remaining effects, but yeah, maybe we just need more time to understand what are other opportunities we can get from it.
Actually, from my side of view, there are three good things in the PSD2. First of all, we as a company discovered new area of business, and this is absolutely different than our core business was or is. I don't know. Second thing is opportunity for merchants and other sellers or service providers in internet to collect money faster, cheaper, and in the most modern way. Because as one of speaker was talking that bank link is something gray area. It's not regulated in any law. It is, but you can't find what it is in other documents than in bank contracts. And this PSD2 opportunity to do the same but in more legal way, it's really great. And I hope that all these merchants who earn some, not spend a lot of money on payment collection will decrease the price of their goods or services, and all payers will win in the result.
Yeah, I will add to this. From my perspective and from my opinion, the payment initiation part should actually just increase the possibilities of the payments and maybe to open the other type of opportunities how we can pay for services, for goods, for basically everything, for subscriptions and all the stuff. So that should also allow new kind of applications that could either connect different banks or to initiate new type of products for banking as such, especially what relates with the payments. And the account information service should actually open the new discussions and within the regulators as well of the process, how the customer is evaluated at the moment. Because we did not touch that part of the account information service, but at this moment, the loan providers, they have the exact procedures, how they have to evaluate the customer and how they can issue or not to issue a loan. But the account information service actually allows to give the exact information about how the customer's financial health is. And to evaluate if the customer is actually be able to get the loan back or to do some stuff financially, but not from the papers. So that should open these kind of opportunities as well.
I'm just looking for the moment when our biggest retailers will have this face recognition or finger recognition, and I will not need any card or whatever with me to pay. So this is written in PSD2, I think.
And it's easy to do.
Just need a couple of developers and a lawyer.
Just two of us.
Yeah, and my favorite is rate of innovation in fintech and a lot more work to software developers. So that was, I think, a great discussion. Thank you for all participants, and round of applause.